Welcome to Off the Cut episode 131 for Wednesday, September 4th, 2024. And with the upcoming election looming, there's only one thing we can all agree on, Zach.
It's that kmtools.com is the best place to get your woodworking tools.
Sure is. And that's
Hell
because
yeah.
everything over there is for woodworker. Jesus.
It's okay.
Woodworkers by woodworkers, which means
That's right.
everything has either been designed by Jonathan and his team and some of the other YouTube creators that you know and love, or has been thoroughly tested because
If it's in the shop, it's in the shop. And I like that. I like what you did there. That was a nice little addition where you said it's either by Jonathan and his team or other YouTube creators.
yeah,
Because you're right. You're right. He does a lot of collaborations with other YouTubers, like Tamar from 3x3 Customs. He's got the Bourbon Blade with Bourbon Moth coming out. Did you get yours, by the way?
no.
Neither have I.
I think that we're in the second
Second
wave.
Yeah, I think we must be.
Yeah. And I know he's working on some stuff with Michael Ohm that's not released yet.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've heard
Yes.
rumblings of what it is. I think it'll be pretty cool.
Nice. All right, well, let's finish this ad read instead of just
anyway.
chatting about Cats Moses related things.
Right. Another huge benefit of shopping at KM Tools is that a portion of all their sales goes directly towards the Cats Moses Woodworkers with Disabilities Funds with Jesus, I cannot talk tonight, which gets tools and resources into the hands of folks who need it most.
Yes. And a little bird told me that he might be giving away some gift card funds to our patrons tonight, perhaps?
Maybe
Maybe.
sometime throughout the show.
Stay tuned for
That's
that.
not on the schedule.
Sorry. These pretzels are making me thirsty.
Hey-oh, there it is.
Got them. Well, let's talk about the elephant in the room here.
The Wednesday cast?
It's Wednesday.
It is
Yeah.
Wednesday.
So it's
I
not-
feel
so it's-
I'm all discombobulated. I started the podcast looking in the opposite direction because I was just
I know.
confused.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. So let's first say we typically record the podcast every Tuesday evening. And it's, everything is going on as planned. Deric, texts us in the afternoon. He's like, hey, I got StreamYard, which is the software that we record the podcast on, all set up. We're like, great, cool. I text the guys and this is like noon or so. And I was like, hey, the electrician's here. There's a chance that I might, be a couple minutes late or whatever. Just want to give you guys a heads up. And you're like, no problem. So then it's like, so long story short, then it's like 6:30, and I'm like, guys, that's not going to happen tonight. But let's rewind. And before I start the story, I also want to point out the fact that over on Discord, people have decided they want to name this episode the one where they fire the electrician.
Oh.
And let me just start off by saying you guys are all going to want to eat your words after saying that.
Yeah, you texted me that earlier, and I was like, you know what? I'll just wait until the show, and he can actually explain what he means by that. So
Yeah.
I'm curious. I have no idea where this story is going.
Right. Okay. So for everybody who doesn't know, we bought a new house, and we're, obviously outfitting the garage with tons and tons of electrical because after having no electrical, I'm going overboard on this thing.
Better to have too much and not need it than the other way around.
Right. So we went through the whole thing. We got several, people to come quote some stuff. We had some poor experience with people quoting things. Ended up settling on a company. So they came out Tuesday morning, and he comes up to me, the owner of the company. His name's John. So John comes up to me. He goes like, "Hey, good to see you again. Thanks for picking us. Let's overview the project. We want to do this here, this here, this here." I was like, "Yep, everything sounds great." He goes, "Awesome." He goes, "If you're going to be here, I'm just going to pull you out just a couple times throughout the day. so that, you know, we do make sure that we're on track, everything is going well. And I was like, yeah, sure, man. Just, you know, the house is empty. So like, if you need to go to the bathroom, like whatever, like roam around. If you can't find me, just yell, like I'll be outside, whatever. And he goes, just so you know, this guy's name is Mike. All right, I'm like, oh, you know, nice to meet you, Mike. He goes, you know, Mike's kind of in training. He's going to be doing some stuff, so it might be a little slower than usual. I was like,
basic apprentice.
Right. I was like, yeah, dude, no problem. Like, we've all been in this position before. Not an issue.
Not me. I came out of the womb just knowing everything.
So then there's this third dude that I didn't get the name, but for the story, we're going to call him Runner. Okay.
Yep.
So John's, you know, working on stuff and Mike's doing stuff, and he's, you know, wants to overview the project. And he goes, all right, my runner is going to go pick up some supplies and stuff like that. I was like, yeah, cool. No problem. And so he goes and picks up supplies. He comes back. They continue working on all the stuff. And then he's like, hey, I got the 110 volt circuits done. These are, you know, are they in the right spot, everything? And I was like, yep, everything's good. He goes, all right. I have to redo them because the runner, or Mike told the runner to get the wrong type of outlets. So they need like the GFI ones or whatever, because they're in the garage or something.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So then the Mike and the runner had to go back to like their supply house. Their supply house was out of those specific type of outlets. So then they had to go to Home Depot. Then when they come back, they find out that they still got the wrong kind of outlet, right? So they have to go back to Home Depot.
Yeah, classic. This is what my life was for many years.
The classic double runaround, right?
Yeah.
So then, you know, he's very frustrated. Whatever, they're working on tons and tons of stuff. He starts running the 240 circuits, right? He goes, got this all situated. Then he realized that he got the runner guy got the wrong plugs for some of the 240 stuff. Because you know, with 240, there's 1,000 different shapes and stuff like that, right?
It's true. And if he, you know, if the runner is not a master electrician, that can get confusing quick. You almost need like to draw out a diagram of what you need. Right.
Yeah. So this happened twice that they got the wrong stuff. And like, I had been out there when this happened, and I see John, he look at me, he goes, I'm so sorry, we're delayed again. And dude, he is visually like shaking. Like, really? He has to be so patient, but he just wants to absolutely murder the two guys that he's helping.
Yeah. He probably doesn't want to wail on his employees in front of the client.
Right.
Yeah.
And I go, dude, it's all good. Like, I'm super patient because I'm going to be there anyway working on stuff. Like, it's fun.
What are you doing while he's working? You doing yard work? You said you're outside?
Yard work, just doing some more like drywall, plaster repair stuff, and ripping out trees and, you know, like dead trees and stuff. And then it's like 4:00, and he's like, hey, we're just about done. You know, give me maybe 45 minutes or so. We're now going to connect the sub panel to your main panel, because they basically did all the electrical work, and then the last thing they're going to do is connect the sub panel, right? Just in case somebody would flip the main breaker, now you're working on a live panel, right? You do that at the end. So he gets all that done. While he's downstairs pulling that cable through the wall, there's a really poorly misplaced light bulb that's right at the bottom of the stairs. And of course, that's right where he's pulling the wire through. So he hits the light bulb with his head, shatters glass all over himself. Has to clean all that up. Then he has to tell his runner to go get a light bulb, because he doesn't have any extra light bulbs in the truck. Because, like, you know,
and some Band-Aids.
Right.
Obviously.
So he's fine. He gets it all connected. And he's like, all right, we're all done. This is like 5:30. It's all done. It's all good to go. Do you want to come out and just, you know, give everything a once over. And I'm like, oh, I felt so bad. I go, you forgot to put a dedicated 240 in this corner for the dust collector.
Oh.
And he's like, he just sighs and he's like, you're absolutely right. Because I gave him like basically like a schematic of the garage.
Yeah.
Like I want
Yeah.
this here, this here, this here, that thing.
Yep.
And he's like, okay, I got it. And he gets up, gets it done in like 15, 20 minutes or whatever. Then, it's all done at this point. We're talking at the end and, give a rundown of how the day went. He was like thoroughly apologizing. I'm like, dude, it's okay. So that was a day, right? You can tell that John was like, God, this was a day from hell.
Yeah, nobody's having a good time on that job site.
It gets worse.
Okay.
So as all of this is going on, around 10 o'clock in the morning, maybe noon-ish, as I'm out there and he is kind of like, giving me like a status update and stuff like that, he gets a phone call. Okay. And he was like, yeah, just give me a minute or whatever. And I can see his face go from like frustrated at the project to like utter despair.
Uh-oh.
And I'm like, oh God, what's going on, right? And he like hangs up the phone, continues like the walkthrough of what's going on. And I was like, you doing all right, man? He goes, I just got a call from my doctor that says I need to come in for additional screening because I might have cancer.
Oh.
And I instantly go, dude, go home.
Yeah.
Like, this is not that important, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can send somebody out next week. Like, I don't care. I was like, guy to guy, I don't care about this job right now. Like,
yeah,
that is way more important. And then he was kind of telling me like, I've gone through some testing and I just keep on wanting me to come back for more testing. And I'm like, damn, man.
Yeah.
So like, he's doing all of this, having the day from hell after he gets like almost a cancer diagnosis. I was like,
man, that's
good
rough.
Lord. Wow. So everybody who said that you should title this show the one where they fire the electrician, I hope you feel really bad now.
Yeah. Well, you know what we should title it is the one where you send thoughts and prayers to Eric's electrician.
Good Lord, right?
That's rough. My electrician actually on the last job I guess between the last job and the one before that, he ended up getting throat cancer.
Oh.
And but he beat it. He made a full recovery, except for the fact that apparently he can't taste things anymore. But he's probably in better health post cancer than he was pre cancer. So
I'm glad to hear that. But
hopefully same thing for your if it even ends up being
right.
That,
I'm hoping
it's not.
Just the testing comes back and he doesn't have it. But like good Lord. And then so this morning I'm heading back out there. And I get a call from John, and he goes, I am so embarrassed to call you. And I'm like, well, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? He goes, we have like a debrief after every single job where we go through a checklist, what went well, what didn't go well, like safety thing, did we do this? Did we do this? I was like, oh, okay, that's impressive, right?
Pretty sick.
And he goes, when I was talking to Mike, one of the things was like, did you make sure you tightened something down? I don't know what it was. And Mike said, I can't 100% guarantee that I did.
Yeah, okay.
He goes, I did it, but I'm not going to sleep unless I go back there and double check it. So he goes, okay, I am horribly embarrassed. Can I come back out and double check this stuff? And I said, of course, man. I'm actually more impressed that you had the morals to call me and say that you want to just double check something just to make sure.
Here's what I would have done, though. I would have said, Well, I mean, I guess it depends on where you're at. But if you were out there, I would have been like, "What's the thing? I'll check it for you, so you don't have to drive out here."
I was going to, but they're not that far away, and I think it would have been like a peace of mind that they wanted to make sure it was right and not just take my word for it, right?
True.
But it was all good. He showed up. He thoroughly apologized. He's like, "I'm so sorry about this. This is not the typical experience." And I was like, "Dude, you've got nothing to apologize about.
Yeah,
you're training someone. This is going to happen. And just going to the store and picking up the wrong thing, it's not like you burnt the house down."
So true.
It's just a shape of an outlet. Like, not a big deal.
I think that's, I get it. I would maybe be a little embarrassed in the same position myself, but that's actually like the sign of like someone who actually cares about their job. It's like mistakes happen to everybody, and it's how you deal with them is what separates, professionals from just, I don't know, non-professionals, for lack of a better term. I can't think of anything better.
No, I agree. And I'm always in the position where if you just tell me, like, admit to the mistake, I would much rather that all day than you like, well, your schematic, I couldn't really read it, so it looked like this was the outlet that you wanted. Like,
passing the buck.
Yeah.
Sounds like you had the exact opposite situation with an electrician that I had recently.
So tell me about yours, Eric.
Are you beefing with an electrician?
Well, so we got a hot tub.
Nice.
And so whenever you get the hot tub, like, it's like one of those big, like, 7-foot ones that sits on like a concrete deck or something.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
We didn't have anywhere to put it, so we needed like a concrete deck, and then you had to run a special line for electrical and everything.
Isn't it like a 60 amp 240 or something? It's big.
It's a big one. So they gave us the number for an electrician, and we were like, okay. So we call him up and we get a quote, or he comes out and he does a quote for us, and he's like, it'll be $5,000, and that'll, we'll pour. He's like, I got a guy. He'll come out. He'll pour the concrete for you.
Okay.
And I'll run the line from your panel and create a new sub panel and all this other stuff. And we were like, okay, that sounds great. And then I got to thinking about it a day later, and I got to go. And since we have an HOA, I have to, bring this up with the HOA. This has to be above board.
Karen.
So I contact the HOA. I'm like, this is what we're doing. What do we need to do to get it approved? And they're just like, just send us the city permits, copies of the city permits, so that we can, and then it's approved. And I was like, okay, so no problem. So I contact the guy, and I'm like, I just need copies of the city permits to get this approved. And he's like, well, I wasn't gonna go with permits, because with permits you have to dig it 2 feet down and you have to bury the line 2 feet down when you run it to your hot tub, and the line is coming from basically the front of the house to the back of the house.
Sure.
And he's like, so that's going to make it cost a lot more. So I was just going to run it about 6 inches under and save you some money. And I was like, well, we want to do this above board.
Right at shovel depth. No big deal.
I was like, let's do this per permit. And how much would it, what's the difference to get it done with a permit? He's like, all right, let me contact my guys and I'll get back with you. So then he comes back and he's like, yeah, it'll be about $2,000 more. And I was like, that's fine. As long as it's, permitted and everybody's happy, and that's good with me. The way I see it, whenever we go to resell it, we're not going to have any issues with it. And if something ever happens with the hot tub, it's covered under the insurance because we did it with permits.
Yeah.
So he comes back out. And he sends he calls up his guys and he schedules the concrete guys. They come out, they do their work, and then the concrete guys get done and they're like, yeah, okay, that'll be $2,000 whatever for the concrete. And I was like, oh no, I thought it was that the electrician was gonna pay you guys and we were gonna pay him, like he's subcontracting you out. And they're like, yeah, usually people just pay us and then it comes off or whatever. And I was like, okay. So I contact him and I'm like, look, I just planned on paying you, with our credit card. So because I want to get the points for it. And, rewards, I'm working that system too. And then I was just going to pay off the credit card with what we had set aside for it. And, but he's like, oh, I don't accept credit cards. I only accept Venmo or PayPal or whatever.
Venmo?
I know. And so I was like, well, okay, well, let me figure out how I'm going to get this handled because I'm not set up for those.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I don't have the money to pay these guys right now. I don't have checks. I haven't written a check in 20 years, so I don't keep checks or anything.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, it's fine. I'll pay him out, and then you can just pay me. And I was like, okay. So back to where we were, and then he comes out like a couple days later, and he does the electrical for it. Everything's great. And then he gets done, and I had sent him payment for the guys that day. And then he gets done with his stuff, and then he's like, all right, you owe me now the $7,000 or whatever it happens to be. And I was like, oh no, that's minus, what I paid you for the concrete guys. So he's like, oh no, those were separate. That's a separate thing. And I was like, no, you subcontracted those out. That's part of the bill. And he's like, oh no, I never included the concrete work in anything. And he never sent us an estimate or anything like that. So that should have been my first clue that I should have got an estimate. And his price wasn't like the cheapest, but it wasn't the most expensive. It was, like kind of right about the middle. And he was the guy that was recommended by the hot tub company, and it just seemed like a good fit. So, so I'm like, this isn't what we talked about. This is what we agreed with. And what we talked about in person was different ever so slightly than the text messages that we had between us. Because I went back and I looked through the text messages, and at no point does he mention the concrete work as part of the estimate that he's giving us. Although he does mention that he's setting up the concrete guys, that he's contacting them and he's sending them out and everything. So I'm like,
right.
I think we got a little leg to stand on there as far as like saying that you're subcontracting it out and it's part of this.
Yeah.
So I'm in the middle of like kind of going back and forth.
Right.
Huh?
It wasn't explicitly stated. It was an
Yeah.
Oh man. That sucks. You always got to do all this stuff in writing and get like a written estimate, but I
make
get
sure
it. It's
everything's on it.
Yeah, I get it. Like sometimes you're like, okay, this guy said he'd come and do it. Like you do have a handshake agreement with him.
Yeah.
But like I based on everything you've said, I would assume all the same things you did. But from his point of view, maybe he's like, well, I said I would find somebody, but I didn't necessarily say that I'd be subconscious. Yeah. Anyway, it's messy.
So what did you end up doing? What did you?
We're still in the middle of it.
Still beefing.
Still negotiating. I paid him out for the electrical, and I have not paid him out for the additional yet. I'm going back and forth with him still. I'm trying to, because the way I see it, yes, it wasn't explicitly said, but it was in our one-on-one conversations. I asked him how much it was going to be to do the concrete work and the electrical initially, and he gave me the first price. And then later on text message, I wrote him and I said, okay, now if we do this with permits, how much would it be? And then he wrote me back and said, to do this with permits and run the electrical and do this and that, and then listed everything except the concrete work, and then gave me a separate price. I just didn't catch that he didn't list the concrete work on there. And I think that's the technicality he's running on. Now, he hasn't been, I haven't heard from him in like 2 weeks as far as like coming back for it. So I'm not sure.
So the work's done.
Yeah, the work's done. Permits are cleared. Everything's good.
Yeah.
But, I'm waiting to see if maybe he tries to put a lien on the house or what. And then I might, see how much more I can fight on it with the city.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know.
Judy.
Seems like a small claims thing to me or something like that. Let a judge weigh in on it. But also, what's your time worth? I
know.
He might be doing the thing on the other side. He might be like, well, that's like a day's worth of my time on a job site or something like that.
It was literally a day's worth of work for him. Like he came out with one other guy and they did it in a day.
Yeah.
So he's wanting like $5,000 for that. I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. $5,000 just to run one circuit, like that seems expensive. I mean, I know that cable's not cheap. Like I'm sure it's probably, $500 to $1,000 worth of just wire alone.
Yeah.
You're probably running like an 8
and he didn't
2 line.
And
there.
I offered up an alternative of instead of burying the line and running it along the side of the house, going up through the attic and then coming back down right next to the hot tub and only having to run it 2 feet to the hot tub.
Yeah.
And he took that and I was like, okay, that's cool. That saves him a lot of effort. He was grateful to not have to, dig out because they dug it by hand too.
Yeah.
Like they didn't use a
Didn't have a
machine or anything.
trench digger?
That's what I thought. I thought he'd come out with like a trench digger and dig it up.
Well,
you know, 2
depends.
feet
Trench
deep.
diggers. I don't know what your property's like, but I've worked on a lot of job sites where it's just easier to hand bomb stuff because getting the trench digger in is a pain in the butt or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose
Yeah.
so. Nah, either way. Yeah, like I said,
So
we're still,
in the end, he ended up running it through the house and not trenching it.
yeah, just ran it through the attic and then trenched and then dug out like about 2 feet, 2 feet deep, about 2 feet long, 6 inches
Yeah.
wide. Buried the line.
But Zach, I'm sure you've got a litany of subcontractor stories to share over your years.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's any like crazy standouts or anything like that. There was one time. Well, I mean, I don't know how this is not very family. One of our subcontractors ended up killing somebody on the way to the job site, completely by mistake. It was the company that we use for insulation. Their truck ended up like hitting somebody at an intersection and killing them. So
It's
that
not
was.
fun, but I mean, it is.
If
If
you don't laugh, you cry.
Right.
That's probably like the most outrageous one I can think off the top of my head. But you're always dealing with stuff like this with subconscious action. And it's funny, working with my dad, he was always like super, super skeptical of working with any new sub trades.
Sure.
Like if one of like say our plumber was like, dude, I'm really busy, I can't get there for a month. My dad would be like, okay, well, we're just gonna wait a month. Because once you find people that you know do good work and like don't mess around and are reliable,
Yeah.
it's worth it rather than to take the risk, be like, okay, we'll get a plumber in that we've never used before, but he can be here tomorrow. And then 6 months later, you're like, we have a pinhole leak in the wall and we have to tear up the hardwood on the ground floor and then cut a hole in the ceiling or something like that. So you build this roster of people who are super dependable and you really lean on them, and it's like it's scary to start getting outside that box, because basically anytime we brought in anybody new, there was always like some little issue or something like that was not up to our level of quality.
I get that. And did you guys also find that it was really hard to like build that roster from the get go? Like you went through shoveled a lot of turds, I bet, to find something good.
100%, yeah. But so when you do find somebody, you're like, this is the guy, like this is the person I want to keep working with forever. And also red flag, Deric, and for all the listeners out there, sub trades, bringing in their like sub trades, it's like, it's not really, like if the electrician starts recommending his concrete guy, it's like, it gets a little sketchy. I mean, sometimes people make recommendations like, hey, I know a good concrete guy, and he can come in and give you a quote for like what it's going to cost to cast this pad for your hot tub. But if he starts taking like, and I guess maybe this is the crux of the issue, but implying that he's going to like take over the management of it and like that'll be a trade that operates under him, it's like, stick to pulling wires and.
Oh, you see, that's the thing. I didn't realize that he was only an electrician until after we were in it. I thought he was a general contractor.
Okay, gotcha.
Who did electrical work and was going to take care of, like, was going to, oversee the whole project. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, gotcha.
Learned.
Yeah.
Just got to be clear on those things.
Yeah.
And
I know myself whenever I deal with a client, and I do my absolute best to make sure that everything is crystal clear going every step of the way. This is what I'm offering. This is what you're going to get. This is what you're paying for. These are options. Are there any questions? Is anything feeling comfortable? And
100%.
I've never had an issue where somebody came back. Well, I guess I had one issue where somebody came back and didn't feel like they got exactly what they wanted, but that's a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
I feel like clarity is the best thing you can possibly do. Like,
what's your saying that you said it a couple of weeks ago? To be unclear is to be unkind.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I like that. That's a good one.
But I mean, it works on anything. It works in a contract, and it could work with your family, with your friend.
Yeah, works with your spouse, with all these things. Yeah.
Just be overly abundantly clear, even to the point where it might be awkward.
That's right.
And it goes well. Like that's what I was trying to do with like the schematic. I was like, all right, I want this outlet here. like 20 amp,
Oh, dude,
240 volt.
a lot of electricians won't start pulling wire until they have a drawing
Right.
of where everything is. It's like, okay, switches on this wall, plugs over here. This one's 220. This one's GFI. Yeah.
Right. But that makes sense because I mean, like, that wire is freaking expensive.
Yeah, and you got to drill holes, and it's all. Yeah.
And like all the wire, what blows my mind is all the wires like perfectly straight. It's stapled like every 8 inches. It is like it literally looks like artwork. It's not just like cable. It's all twisted up and like bunched together. And I'm like, dude, this is impressive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who do you think of? Now this is going to be polarizing, but you've been around like all of the trades.
Yeah.
Who
the
do
worst
you
is roofers. Worst is roofers. 100%
Okay, roofer. So no, we're not talking about personality. We're talking about like quality and care for like really precision, like OCD stuff. Like if you're doing drywall, like your screws are like every spaced evenly or like something. Who do you think is the
drywall
most?
guy's not great for that generally.
Who's the most like persnickety and finicky about really small detail things?
I mean, we used to have an electrician who would go around and he would make sure all the screws were clocked perfectly at 12 degrees at the end of the job.
I think it's between plumbers and electricians. It just depends on who you get.
Yeah, I was also going to say painters too. Painters tend to, if a wall's a little wavy or, some spots got the incorrect sheen, they're usually on it pretty good. Again,
I have not. That has not been my experience with painters. They're usually overspraying, and you got to make sure the outlet covers are off, or they'll go right over them, and things are out of the way.
That's brutal. But again, this is why you got it. This is why it's so important to build that roster of really good, detail-oriented people. Because the truth of the matter is, at any step in the building process, you can screw things up for everybody. Yes. Like if you have the world's best drywaller and they give you like a perfectly flat wall with no screw pops and it's all perfectly plastered, and the painter comes in and just rolls on the world's worst coat, it's like, okay, the framers are now pissed, the drywall guys are now pissed, the client's pissed.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like you have to operate as a team, and everybody has to be that detail-oriented.
Yeah. So with the paint, so we got painters coming tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know how like when somebody's, that's crispy. What flavor you got tonight?
It's crispy. I have the beer flavor.
Oh,
cool.
Yeah.
He's got water.
The Rocky.
I know, it's the ultimate seltzer water.
So like, when people like spackle stuff and then they do a really bad job, so it becomes super smooth, but it's like domed over and stuff.
Yeah.
Would you expect that the painter would like sand that before they like do like surface prep and stuff like that for painting an entire home?
I mean, ideally, yes. That's would be my expectation, but I would have walked through the house and like made that clear during the initial.
Yeah, we're gonna do a walkthrough tomorrow.
And, I would point out stuff like that and be like, "Are you good sanding this and making it nice before you paint?"
Right. If not, don't start painting now.
Yeah.
Because I want that fixed before, like, if there's like a crack, and like the corner bead or something like that. Like, don't just paint over and have it look like hell. Like, let's fix.
Yeah, I would have that conversation and be like, like if you need to adjust your quote to match my expectation, then please do that. I'd rather do that than have a bunch of paint rolled over spackle that's not being sanded and cracks in the wall and stuff.
Right. So. That's not an unreasonable thing to ask of the painter.
No, definitely not. The painters I always worked with, they would take care of stuff like that.
That makes sense. Obviously, they're not going to be like, yo, I'm not going to re-drywall your entire house. But like, you have a couple people put in like drywall anchors. Like, yeah, I'll fix that. And, corner beads popping out. Like, sure, I'll slam some more screws into it and then, put compound over it and whatnot. Right. That's a reasonable expectation.
100%. But again, be clear.
Especially in Deric's case, made me want to be overly abundantly clear about that. But
And okay, so to go back to being clear and kind of like contracty stuff. Deric shared a preview of his latest YouTube video with us the other day, and we'll talk about that. But also, I wanted to talk about the experience of you had like a sponsor lined up, not for the YouTube video, but for some Instagram reels.
Yep.
And they tried to pull it out at the last minute.
They did. They tried to pull out at the last minute. Usually I appreciate that, but this time it was really inconvenient.
Well, that could be the show title.
The one where they pull out?
Or they pull out at the last minute. Oh my god.
Yeah. So they contacted you about a sponsorship. You agreed to it.
Well, I say they contacted me. It's a website that I use to get into contact with sponsors, and I applied for it, and they approved me. Well, actually, they did. I applied for it, and I was denied. And then I got emails that from somebody within the company, and they were like, "Hey, did you know this thing is out there? And we think you'd be a great fit for it and everything." And I wrote them back, and I said, "This is funny. I applied for it, and I was denied. And I've gotten emails from 2 other people in your organization telling me that I'm a great fit for this. Why was I denied if I'm such a great fit?" I didn't expect, I thought it was an automated email, so I didn't expect anything back. And she writes back, she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Where do, let's make sure we got your name and address right and everything like that. And, confirmed it. And she's like, yeah, okay, you should, you're fit for this and everything. And so she went through and approved it, and then it came up on my thing. And so I went ahead and did it, which I thought that was real, which is every time I've gotten something with them, it's been like that, where I'll apply for it and then I get denied for it, and then they're sending me emails, and I'm like,
it was like,
what's going on?
Interesting. So you go through that rigmarole, and then you're accepted, and then did you start work on the project, and then?
Yeah, so they sent me the thing, and they're like, we're gonna go. She'll approve it and everything like that. So you're on board, but we need it by I can't remember the exact date, but it was like 10 days away. It was like just over a week out, and I was like, yeah, that's no problem. This what I have planned shouldn't take very long. I can get it to y'all, no problem. Which the thing had been live for about 2 months. It had been up on their site. So had I got on when I first applied, I would have had plenty of time to work with it. But anyways, it was like 10 days is what I had to work it, because the thing was supposed to be closing. And it wasn't, as you saw, it wasn't a difficult project. It's something that can be banged out in a day or two.
It's still work though. Like,
but there's the editing, and whenever you film something, it takes longer, and so on and so forth. But
did you have a contract?
Yeah, it's their website has, like, whenever you, I guess it's a contract. I mean, you're filling out a form and you're applying for the position, and then they approve or deny it or whatever. Right. So there's somewhat of a contract there. Now it's not my contract. It's definitely their contract. So I'm at their whim. And
right. Yeah, and it's one of those, if you try to redline it, they're just going to tell you to F off and like.
Well, it was originally they were offering me $500 for the posts, for the 2 posts. And I came back and I said, I'll do it for 15. And then they countered, and they're like, well, 1,000 is like the most that we can offer on this particular one. And whether or not that's true, I was like, that's fine. That's good enough for me.
Hell yeah.
To do it, to do 2 reels, I'll do that.
Yeah.
So I accepted, and now where we are. And I went out and I got, I started filming stuff. Like, they wanted some shots in the store, so I went and I filmed in the store, because this is for Floor and Decor. That's why I got the little 360 go thing, because I was like, I can just snap this to one of the rails, and then I can just walk around.
True.
Nobody will be any of the It's not like I'm coming in there with a giant Canon camera or something like that. So nobody knew what I was doing. Although I did get stopped at one point, because I went in early in the morning when nobody's there. And I got stopped at one point by one of the employees, and he's like, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" And I was like, "No, I'm good. I'm just kind of like looking around." And I walked around again, and I came around the bend, and I caught him on another aisle a few minutes later. And he's like, "Are you sure there's nothing I can help you out with? We got plenty of selection and this and that, and
Damn,
he's give
that's
me
a
the whole
good
sales pitch.
salesperson.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, no, I'm good. And at the time, I was actually filming a little bit. I had just got done filming, and I had grabbed the camera off the rail, and I just kind of like had it in my pocket, and while this conversation's going. But yeah, so I was able to go around the film pretty easily. And then I got done filming. I went home. I built the thing out in like a day and a half because, dry times on things. So that was my half day is the next day whenever it's drying, I'm giving a second coat. And I sit down and I get it into my office. I get my office set up because it was a desk for my office. And so I got my desk set up and everything. And as soon as I got done setting it up, I'm uploading all my footage and I'm going to edit out my reels and everything. And I get the email that the whole thing got pulled. And I got an email that the what do they call it? The campaign had been canceled.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And so I wrote him because I had an email going back and forth with the manager of the campaign. And I wrote her and I was like, what's going on? When did this get canceled? I'm within the time limit. I still got days left to go.
Right.
This hasn't passed.
Yeah.
What happened? And she was like, oh no, they decided to cancel the campaign altogether and they're pulling out of all of it. And I was like, oh, she's like, yeah, they do this sometimes. I guess Floor and Decor does this where like the campaign reaches a certain point and they cancel everything that's left on the table.
Okay. Well, to pause you real quick, I've never heard of that happening. So maybe this is something Floor and Decor does, but like that sounds like maybe that agency is doing something a little shady behind the scenes.
Maybe,
And Deric, this is maybe one thing you could consider, like, going. These are growing pains, right? Like,
yeah.
These are things that we have all had to learn. Like, we've all had catastrophic failures with sponsors and stuff in the past, and it's just something that you learn from. One of the things that I've noticed, Zach, and I don't know if you've noticed this too, in the contracts that they send out through Influent with Mark, who they're our brand agent that we use, they have a clause in there that says basically something along the lines of, as soon as you sign this contract, you owe us at least 50% of the contract value, even if you decide to cancel it.
Yeah.
So, like, Deric, that's something that you can add to your Rolodex of like, okay, this is something I need to, hey, you have no guaranteed, call it the pull-out clause or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm not signing that unless you put it in there.
Totally. And then you're in a position where you're like, come on, cancel. Come on, cancel.
I don't know how much leverage I'd have on this particular website. I don't really get a lot from them. I've gotten 2 campaigns out of them, 3, but
I mean, that's not bad.
Over the last, year and a half. So it's
more than I've got, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. That's probably about how many Instagram campaigns I've done in the last year or so. So
about 3.
And that's what they specialize in. So I don't expect because they're looking for a post. So I don't expect big, massive payouts or contracts with them. I expect these to be kind of quick and dirty, if you will.
Yeah,
but
it's almost like, like sometimes, like for the electrician, like for them to come out, I had to make like a deposit or something. I'm surprised there aren't brands that we require brands to do like an upfront deposit or like, like Dadu said, like 40% up front, something like that.
Yeah.
But it takes forever to get paid by these brands anyway.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
I just got paid out
after I post them up
last year.
Oh, really?
Last year? Oh my God. Wow.
Well, every time I've worked with them, it's been like a week or 2 after the post goes up. I get paid usually.
Well, a week or 2 is not bad, honestly. Yeah.
It's
so wait. So have you been paid for that contract?
I got paid this morning. It
cleared. Yeah, brother.
All right. Okay.
So was that your first pretty sizable brand deal?
4 figures?
Yeah, first 4 figures. Yeah.
Hell
sure.
yeah, dude!
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Before that, it was 600 and 400. So
Hell yeah.
Dude, that's
not
still
bad,
nothing to laugh at. Like,
Did you just your last 2 contracts? You got those in one contract this time. You know what I mean?
that's true. Yeah.
hell yeah. I find it like I love this. But I find it interesting that in the scheme of things, Deric, you're a micro influencer. Is that the term?
That's what they call it. Yeah.
Okay, right. That's really
It's
good
ridiculous.
payment. Like,
Yeah.
It's so demeaning.
I know it's very demeaning. But like, if you're like, okay, somebody, if somebody's got 1 million subs on YouTube, you're like, yeah, okay, like I can see why they would be getting paid or whatever. But like, dude, that's awesome that brands are reaching out to smaller accounts because they know that they have a core audience that could potentially be stronger than a larger account.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see what like say a company is like, okay, we have $100,000 to spend on social media advertising. Do we get like 3 bigger accounts at 25,000 and then split up the other 25,000 across like 25 small accounts?
Whoa.
Or is it more like a small, medium, large type of thing? I'd love to know what the kind of math looks like behind the scene.
Yeah. Hear me say this. I want them to target people of my size.
Yeah, obviously.
But from
100 to 400,000 is the ideal size of patient targeting.
Exactly. But also, like, if I take all personal emotion out of it, if I was in that position, I don't know. I think I would do a couple larger ones and then focus a lot on smaller accounts.
Well, let me devil's advocate this, and this is not necessarily what I believe, but do you think if somebody has 1 million followers, their opinion or like them basically endorsing a product is worth more? It's almost like a celebrity or like a halo effect that happens with their endorsement, where it's then worth more than just the pure numbers would suggest.
So yes and no. I'm going to start with the no. Okay. Actually, I'm going to start with the yes. If it's a tech product, this is just my example. It's a tech product and it's somebody that everyone knows, like, that's the tech guy. Like, if it's like a Marquez Brownlee, if he does a review and is like, yeah, this tech thing is amazing, I would say that would carry a boatload of weight. Right? Right? And it's like, okay, well, we're going to spend money to get Marquez to do this stuff. But at the same time, if it's like a tech product and George Clooney is promoting it, you could make the argument that George Clooney has a bigger reach, but I think Marquez Brownlee would carry a lot more governance, like importance, like impact, right?
Yeah, so it almost has to be like a fit, like the right creator for the right. And you will often see that, like campaigns will be like, I feel like they'll be they'll pay more for somebody who's really aligned with whatever the product is. Right. Yeah.
Like I've gotten like brands that are like, hey, we want to do like a lifestyle clothing stuff with you. And I just respond to them. I'm like, this isn't a fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
watch all my videos. I look like a dork. Like,
I wear gym shorts and Zach's t-shirt in every video. It's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So Deric, how do you view it from where you're at? Like, do you think brands would be better if you owned an ad agency and you had $100,000 budget? How do you think you would allocate it?
I think a 30-40 split, probably go like 30 to a large influencer, as many of them as I could get. And then, 30 to like some medium-sized influencers, as big as I can get, or as much as I can get there. And then, the rest, the 40 to like the smaller ones, because I feel like the smaller ones, whenever you saturate the market from different angles and the integrations read as true or genuine from the person doing the read, then the consumer isn't getting hit with one specific ad from one specific influencer telling them one specific thing, they're getting it from multiple angles, and they're hearing different stories and different reasons why they should use the product. And I think that's
interesting. Yeah,
that's kind of the
that's a
thought
good point.
process there.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense.
Which,
this
I
is
mean, for me, it worked out really because, I got paid for the 2 reels, and then I'm spinning this into my next YouTube video, like full video. And then I think this one's probably, it's my latest one. I think it's my best one so far. And, we'll see whenever it comes out on Friday.
Hell yeah.
Oh, it's
dude,
going to
that's
come out on Friday?
cool.
Nice.
That's my plan. I gotta redo the voiceover, and I plan to have it out on Friday.
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see how it does. How many dozens of thumbnails and title combinations do you have?
I got a few already. The funny thing is I posted the 2 reels that they paid for. And then I also posted around it other reels that I clipped out of the same material that are just like me, talking about like what's going on. All the ones that I clipped out of it that were not sponsored did easily 2,000 views per reel. The ones that were sponsored got around 500 a piece. Like it tanked for the sponsored ones tanked.
It's hard to do Instagram sponsored content because I think no matter how you do it, people see the promotional tag thing.
Yeah.
And then they just immediately keep scrolling.
Yeah.
So
and I put it out across all the platforms too, because I was like, I don't care. I just need something out there. And then what's funny is it did the best on YouTube with my way smaller audience, but it did way better over there.
As a YouTube short?
Yeah, as a short. Yeah.
So was that part of the negotiation? You were like, I'm going to post it on all 3 platforms? Or were you like, well, it's content, so I'll just post it to all 3?
Well, both. I started out and I said, when in the negotiation, I said, I'll do the 1,500. This is what I wanted. And they came back and they said 1,000. And I said, well, what if we do 1,500 and I post it on TikTok as well for you? Because I know that's pretty popular with folks.
Yeah.
I wasn't pushing my YouTube because I don't feel like there's enough of an audience there yet for it to be interesting to a sponsor.
Yeah. I mean, it's always like a little bonus. Just for future reference, when you go in to do these negotiations,
couldn't hurt.
Like, and you might not. You might get in a position where they don't even like necessarily check the size of your YouTube audience.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That might,
like it's just kind of like a little sweetener that you can put on top. And do Facebook too. Like, who cares what the size of your audience is? Like, that's on them to do the back end research.
That's true. Yeah. But so they came back and they're like, no, we just want the Instagram. And I was like, that's fine. And so, it became like I kind of want to put this out as content either way. And so I clipped down the parts where I talked about floor and decor specifically and left it as more of just the build. But there was still a little bit of like, I got the sponsorship from floor and decor in there. So it was still, because I couldn't completely eliminate it.
Sometimes you just need to.
It's part of the story.
Shots. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like I said, I put it on all 3 of them at the exact same time, and the YouTube one did phenomenal compared to the other ones. Yeah, I thought so.
Huh. I wonder,
and especially with like all the other ones that I did around it. Oh my!
Eric just rejoined on his phone because I think we lost him. Yeah.
I don't know what happened. Sorry. Go ahead.
Man.
Proceed. If I'm echo though, let me know. Or actually, I'll probably mute my mic.
So far, so good. Actually.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Sounds pretty good.
All right,
I was noticing that your audio and your video were starting to come unsynced at some point, but I didn't know if that was just me or not.
Yeah, I did notice it getting a little glitchy. What were we talking about just a second ago before Eric so rudely interrupted with his vertical video?
I cross-posted it and it did better on YouTube than it did on Instagram.
Yeah,
and everything around it, all the other videos that I posted off the same content in between them and around them did better as well.
So that's what I wanted to talk about was I think all the platforms at this point are basically running the same algorithm in terms of, basically we'll show it to random people depending on how long they watch for. We will show it to more people or less people, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. The fact that it performs differently on different platforms is a little interesting. I wonder if there is an element of randomness. Like maybe you just got more people. Maybe you just so happened, especially when you're only dealing in the like single 1,000 views. You know, like
Yeah.
1 to 10,000 views. Maybe randomness still plays a factor there, and I don't know.
I don't either. But yeah, I know most of my views over on YouTube because they have the better analytics.
Yeah.
Only 1% ever comes from my subscribers. It's always
Yes.
like 99% is coming from everywhere else,
Yeah.
from
yeah.
the search or whatever it is.
I know a lot of big accounts on YouTube don't want to post shorts. So maybe
Yeah.
there's like a lack of short form content there. So maybe there's more eyeballs, but not necessarily the creators creating
Maybe,
for
yeah.
it. So maybe that has something to do with it. Whereas maybe Instagram's a little bit more saturated and TikTok's a little bit more saturated.
I know my strategy with it is just to grow my sub count to
Yeah.
over 1,000, just to kind of get me over that first hump, as is
to
a
hit
quick
that
and dirty
monetization.
method. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not even just
yeah.
for monetization, but just for, like motivation, really. Cause,
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. And
That's
then,
something
you know,
people don't talk about a lot, is like that motivation, like hitting those thresholds early on. Like that's big. It's because well, I mean, you are earning money from it, but back in the day, when I was growing my channel, I wasn't earning anything. But like hitting 1,000, hitting 10,000, like you're really not making significant money at that point. But it's like, wow, this is like, I don't know, they're big milestones, and like that is kind of your payment for the first little bit.
yeah.
Well, like, dude, it is a slog. Like the first, I don't know, 1,000 or so. Hell, even the first couple hundred, like subs on a YouTube channel. It takes
Yeah.
so much effort to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was lucky in the sense that, I had a decent Instagram following. So I was able to get over that 1,000 threshold pretty quickly by just kind of pumping it out on my Instagram and like, doing a lot of links for my stories and stuff like that. But getting to 10,000 was tough.
All right, everybody. We obviously, you could tell, had a huge technical difficulty here where the podcast just randomly stopped. Not sure exactly what happened, but before we end the episode, we want to do our giveaway. Yeah, before we pull out, we want to do the giveaway. So I actually have to reopen this up because the computer shut down. All right, I've got it.
Zoodles.
I downloaded everything today. How many times do you want me to refresh the thing to pick the random generator?
I feel like we're on a tight schedule now because we're behind. So let's just do 3 refreshes.
1, 2, 3. The winner this month, and I'm definitely mispronouncing this, of the $50 gift card to Cat's Moses Tools is, I'm going to say, Hatem Al-Salami.
Oh, nice.
Hell yeah. We will be in touch. Well, I will be in touch with you. I'll get you hooked up with Jonathan and Mark that helps facilitate that. And we got a $50 Cam Tools gift card heading your way. So get some tools, get a bourbon blade maybe.
Oh, yeah.
Huh? Oh, yeah. All right, everybody, we are going to head over to the after show. But before we do that, we want to give a huge shout out to our returning top tier patrons. We've got Joe Welsh at Delaware Valley Workshop, Goblin Spanker, Dan Armendrez, Corey Duvall, Josh at Sawdust Builds, and it appears that Dadu's debit card is working this week. So Dadu is one of our returning top tier patrons as well. Everybody else, we will catch you next week. Or if you want to head over to the after show and check out all 131 previous after shows from the back catalog, just go over to patreon.com/offthecutpodcast.
So much content.
These pretzels are making me thirsty. All right, everybody. We'll catch you next week. See you.
See ya.
See ya.